Oh, hello there. You're here for this, right? Take it. Take it, please. Please take it. I don't want it anymore. I can't bear to look at this little fairy elf thing anymore. After all this research, all this scrounging the internet for any hint of anything, I've found only theories full of holes and meaningless voice lines. It's almost like this comedy relief meatball just materialized at the end of your fishing line. It's ridiculous. So then why am I here if there isn't even an answer to the question that brought you here? Am I going to start throwing a bunch of images at you with red circles and try to explain and connect the entire Hoyoverse? Am I gonna drag out the video and waste your time? No. Well, maybe a little bit of dragging out the video and a tiny bit of wasted time. But I'm going to find the answer even if I have to pull it out of the depths of hell itself. Who, what, why, when, how is Paimon? Let's do a little digging, yeah? So I had to somehow drudge up a backstory for a comic relief character that seems to have purposely dodged any meaningful backstory connection to anyone or anything. If worse comes to worse though, I can always just, I don't know, pretend to find something. I must say that I'm pretty good at giving something more meaning than it actually has. But there was something I noticed during my initial research that hopefully will lead us somewhere. Unfortunately, it might be a little difficult to get my hands on. It's an ancient tome, grimoire if you would, that might hold some clues on the origins of our elusive Paimon. The issue is that we need to hop across worlds, but, well, there's no time like the present, as they say. Let's swim through the river of limitless connections and lose ourselves, and wash ashore upon the banks of a gathering of divine knowledge. Yeah, I mean, welcome to the Stephen A. Schwarzman New York Public Library in Midtown Manhattan. Yeah, I hear you wondering why in the world I would take you to a public library in the middle of New York City. Don't worry, I wouldn't take you here without good reason. There's a really old book here that we'll be browsing through to hopefully find our answer. You want to know more about Paimon's lore though, right? Sometimes sacrifices must be made in the pursuit of knowledge, and this time the sacrifice is that I had to touch grass. My poor bones. Let's just head inside though. Summer here is surprisingly hot. I couldn't possibly imagine why. I know this one might be a bit of a shocker, but this library is actually filled with books. Crazy, huh? But the book I've come for is actually here, a very special and old book. You have to request permission to even handle it. Hopefully I've piqued your interest a little. If not, it's too late. You're already here. The book we've come for is called De Prestigiis Daemonum. It dates all the way back to the mid-16th century, but there's only one version we're interested in. This version came out in 1577 and contains an appendix called Pseudomonarchia Daemonum. This appendix is a list of 69 demons with brief descriptions and details about each. Most importantly for us is that Paimon is on this list, and has a longer description than most of the other demons. All that is to say that we got pretty lucky that the exact version we need is the one they actually have. It's genuinely a little exciting to actually get to request a book like this though. I can briefly pretend like I'm an important person requesting a rare book to learn more about the secrets of the world. Except the secret hidden from the world is just lore about a stupid fairy thing with greed and gluttony as its main characteristics. But let's go ahead and get our book. I've kept you all waiting long enough. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to take videos, so photos are what we've got here. I'm not sure what I expected though. I definitely thought it would have more punch than this at least. I mean, it's certainly an old book. I had to get a whole appointment 5 days in advance to handle this thing for an hour, so it's the real deal, but I kind of expected some grand tome with fancy engravings. Oh well, I mean, this isn't about the cover anyway. It's all about the secret knowledge contained within. And looking through these pages, I'm honestly a little excited to see what we'll find. But actually, yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I can't read Latin as it turns out. This old book just so happens to be in Latin. How funky. Yeah, well, I guess this was kind of a waste of both of our times, but we can at least pretend like we know what's going on. I was only able to see this book because I masqueraded as an independent researcher, so I at least need to pretend like I'm getting some value out of it. I'll just chill and stare blankly at the pages I can't read until it's been long enough, I guess. I'll see you all in 30 minutes to an hour then. Now is where I'd love to show you the translated version of the book we just looked at, but alas, the world has failed me. Both translated copies don't actually include the appendix we need, so all we have translated are passages about punishing demons and demon worshippers. Boring. Which means we'll be consulting an online version of the book. Far less flashy, but admittedly more useful, I guess. But now I can move on to the other book I wanted to look at today. Huh? It's what? How did... Whatever, I didn't want to show you all a physical copy of the Ars Goetia anyway. In fact, I don't want to show you any actual physical books. Why don't we just cut out the whole Latin book section, huh? I actually wanted to come to this library just to sit around and, kill a few hours. What does time matter anyway? I guess we'll just head back and use some stupid digital copies. And that concludes our library tour. After complete failure, we can trudge back filled with complete resignation. Back to the game world, I guess. And what better way to get back than through the subway? Oh god, I'm gonna be sick. If I don't make it back from here, burn my body so I can turn into CO2 and help kill all of you. Also, while we're in the darkness of hell, why don't you subscribe to the channel? Cringe. Hope I die in here. I don't have to keep talking after that one. It's good to be back. Now, let's not waste any time. We have all the online tools to finally learn all about Paimon's history and backstory. Genshin failed us utterly, but the real world only mostly failed us. A surprise to be sure. Really quick before I dive in though, I need to address my skeptics. I'm sure some of you are doubting whether this real-world book can actually say anything about Genshin's Paimon. Clearly they must be different Paimons, you might say, which is fair. I once was so foolish as to believe that as well. Fortunately, I have just the thing to persuade you that Demonology Paimon and Genshin Paimon are actually one and the same. This book dissects our Demonology Paimon's name and finds the roots of Pom, which means a tinkling sound or a small bell. Not particularly hardened evidence, but it does fit somewhat with Genshin's Paimon. Our second root, though, is Pom, which means to agitate. I really don't think I need to say any more here. The evidence is conclusively in my favor. So now we can move forward without any pesky naysayers, because I've thoroughly proven my point. One more note though, there is actually an older book about demonology that very likely talks about Paimon as well. It's called Liber Officiorum Spiritum, or the Book of the Office of Spirits. Unfortunately, there are no existing original copies of the text. We only know it exists because of references to it in other books. I'm sure none of you signed up for a demonology text history lesson though, so all that matters is that we're moving on now, so never fear. The two texts we have are actually almost exactly the same thing, with only minor deviations. One is the book that was missing at the library, the Ars Goetia. It contains a list of demons strikingly similar to the list in Pseudomonarchia Daemonum, but with 72 instead of 69 this time. It is, admittedly, barely understandable, but the other is completely incomprehensible. I was an English major though. I spent 4 whole years dedicated to learning how to read. So that makes me a pro reader, and this badge proves it too. I'm basically just going to sort of translate it from absurd English to comprehensible English. The incomprehensible book has more details than the other ones, so we'll mostly be looking at that one, unfortunately. This beginning section just tells us that Paimon is more loyal to Lucifer than most other demon kings. Yes, Paimon is in fact a demon king. We're starting off so strong here. I couldn't be happier, honestly. Next, we get some description of Paimon's appearance, which is that of a man riding a mega speedy dromedary camel, which you can just think of as the camels with a single hump. And Paimon also wears a glorious crown and appears feminine. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. We've only just gotten started and we already have such a beautiful backstory going. So much more than I was getting before. Paimon, Demon King. Paimon, riding a single-humped camel. Paimon, Royalty. Paimon wears a crown, and only royalty wear crowns. Okay, maybe not that last one, but still interesting stuff nonetheless. This is definitely not the lore I expected, though, I have to say. Also, we have more clear and blatant evidence that both Paimons are the same. Both have a crown. I hear you saying that I'm just making this up. Stop that. By the time I realized this was all fake, I'd already sunk too much time into, not make this is real. Actually, this isn't real. It is all fake. Both Paimons are fictional characters, meaning they must be the same. That's how fiction works. Back on topic though, Paimon doesn't appear alone. Paimon appears with a squad of men all blasting trumpets, crashing cymbals, and tooting on a bunch of other instruments. All things I'm sure Paimon would do if she could. It goes on to say that if you don't understand what the hell Paimon's saying, no problem. Just ignore them and move on. Information that I also learned very early on while playing Genshin. But let me slow down for a moment. This next section here is writing that was written by a person who existed at some point in time, and clearly not someone who knew that you need to clarify who a pronoun refers to. Just listen to this garbage. But when he hath delivered him the first obligation to observe his desire, he must bid him also answer him distinctly and plainly to the questions he shall ask you, of all philosophy, wisdom, and science, and of all other secret things. I may be a professional reader, but even I have my limits. Let's have a look at our other book, then, to hopefully figure out what's going on. Admittedly, not very helpful, but kind-hearted fool that I am, I have made some educated guesses on which male pronoun refers to who, so let me give you a hopefully correctly translated version. But when you have reminded him of his first obligation to fulfill your desire, you must bid him to answer you distinctly and plainly for any questions you shall ask him, of all philosophy, wisdom, and science, and of all other secret things. It sounds right, so I'm just going to assume it's right. This and the section immediately after both show us that Paimon has near infinite knowledge and wisdom. You just need to tell Paimon they're obliged to answer your question, and then you'll have your answer from the font of all wisdom, philosophy, and science. Of course, this all assumes that you've gone through the process of summoning Paimon, which I can only assume is what the Traveler did, considering that Paimon seems to appear out of nowhere. Maybe the Traveler doesn't realize that they just need to say the right words and Paimon will suddenly become actually useful. Imagine that. Next, we get into more of Paimon's abilities, which here says the ability to give out dignities and confirmations. I'm not quite sure how to interpret this, but my understanding is that it means Paimon is able to confer high ranks onto you, like Lord, along with the perks associated. And confirmation, given its raw definition, probably means the ability to bring you into demonhood. Maybe Paimon was truly the one responsible for you being able to meet so many rulers and leaders by granting you a fancy rank. This is what we call scraping the bottom of the barrel. I have nothing of value to say about this piece of information, but I still say something obviously untrue in the hopes of at least looking like I'm adding value. Next is quite the spicy one. Paimon has the ability to bind any enemy in chains and subjugate them. Break their mind and spirit, if you would. This is casually passed over to add Paimon's ability to make good familiars and a complete knowledge of all arts. Important information, I guess, but you can't just gloss over the ability to magically bind and subjugate someone. If Traveler did summon Paimon though, then that would certainly make defeating any enemy a lot easier. But I also doubt that magically bending someone to your will wouldn't have very significant after effects. It also might be a little too gritty for the mostly happy little wholesome Genshin. And the last section we have here doesn't actually add too much since it mostly deals with Paimon's posse, so we can honestly just cut our paragraph off here. But what did we learn? Our goal was to discover Paimon's hidden backstory and figure out where exactly this thing came from. And in that case, goal obviously accomplished. We learned Paimon is a demon lord, has an incredibly fast camel, is completely incomprehensible, may have been summoned by the Traveler, secretly has knowledge of everything, and has the ability to bend enemies to her will. Now we just need to unlock her infinite knowledge and power in the game. So how do we... What? Do I hear those filthy naysayers from before again? Have you come back here to say that the carefully constructed connections between Demon King Paimon and weird fairy thing Paimon are built on complete fabrications? I can't believe you would say that when they share such striking similarities. The crown, the name, the vanity, the both being like fictional characters. They're obviously this clearly the same. You know, I had a thought. Like maybe they aren't the same. Maybe I was like wrong, you know? Maybe I was casually browsing through a list of demons and saw Paimon and thought it'd be funny to talk about it. Like maybe I willfully spent 2 weeks recording a video I knew was all a lie, but I mean, even if it was a sham, at least we like had fun, right? You know? Since my carefully constructed theory has been shattered, now we'll have to return to a world with nary a grain of Paimon lore to be found. A world that has no understanding of why or how Paimon. A lesser world. Enjoy it, I guess. Until Demon Lord Paimon is unleashed and all of Tavad is brought to its knees before their new queen. Up yours, woke Paimonologists. We'll see whose theory's right. See y'all in hell.